The first motion alert came in while I was at work, and the clip was only 4 seconds long. But it was enough to make my stomach drop because it showed someone standing in my hallway, completely still, facing my bedroom door. I watched it 3 times in a row before I even realized I'd stopped breathing. And what messed me up most was that the person didn't look like they were breaking in, or rushing through the apartment, or doing anything obvious. They were just there, like they already belonged inside. I live alone in a small first-floor apartment on the edge of a quiet complex, and the only reason I even had an indoor camera was because a few months earlier, someone had been opening packages in our mail area, and management basically told everyone to get their own cameras if they were worried about theft. I bought one of those cheap security cams online and put it on a shelf in my living room so it could see the front door, part of the kitchen, and the hallway leading to the bedroom and bathroom. Most of the alerts I got were nothing. Just headlights from the parking lot shifting through the blinds at night, or me leaving for work in the morning, or my cat jumping onto the counter before he died a few months earlier. After that, I almost unplugged it because I hated seeing the empty apartment every time I checked in, but I kept it running mostly out of habit. My routine was boring and predictable. I worked at a warehouse about 20 minutes away, usually took the late shift, and got home sometime after 11. I locked my door, checked it twice, kept my keys in the same bowl by the sink, and was honestly the kind of person who noticed immediately if something small was off. That's why the first clip bothered me so much. The figure in the hallway was too far from the camera to make out clearly, but it looked like a man, tall and thin, wearing dark clothes and maybe a hood or hat. The quality on the camera wasn't great, especially in low light, and the apartment was dim because I'd left only the kitchen light on. The person was standing in the strip of darkness between the kitchen and bedroom, like they were listening to something. Then the clip ended. I checked the live feed right away, expecting to see an empty apartment, but it just showed the hallway exactly as normal, no one there. I called my neighbor across the courtyard and asked if he could walk over with me on video while I watched the feed, but he didn't answer because he was at work too. I ended up calling the leasing office, and the woman there sounded annoyed more than concerned. She asked if maybe it was an old clip or a shadow, or maybe maintenance had entered. But maintenance always leaves a slip on the counter when they come in, and no one had notified me about anything. I left work early anyway, and drove home feeling stupid and sick at the same time. I was half convincing myself it was some glitch, and half imagining someone waiting behind my shower curtain. When I got there, the deadbolt was locked. The chain was still on. Nothing looked disturbed. I checked every room, every closet, under the bed, even the little space above the water heater in the utility closet. Nothing. No missing items, no slip from maintenance. The only thing I found was my bedroom door pulled almost closed when I knew I'd left it open that morning because I never shut it anymore after my cat died. I told myself maybe I had shut it without thinking. That night, I barely slept. I kept the bedroom lamp on and opened the app every time I heard a sound from the building, which is pretty often when you live on the first floor. Around 2:13 in the morning, I got another motion alert. It was from the same hallway area. Except this time, the clip started with my bedroom door moving inward by maybe an inch, like someone on the other side had touched it and then stopped. I was in bed, staring directly at the door when the alert came through. Nothing moved in front of me. The door in my room was still shut. I actually remember sitting up and feeling this cold rush go through my arms because the clip that had just been recorded did not match what I was looking at in real time. I opened the live feed again, and for a second, it buffered, then loaded, and the hallway was empty. The camera timestamp matched the current time. I got out of bed, turned on every light, and checked the whole apartment again with a kitchen knife in one hand, which I know sounds pathetic, but that's what I did. Still nothing. The next morning, I reset the camera, changed the password, updated the app, and even moved the camera slightly higher, so it had a wider view of the living room and hallway. For a couple days, nothing happened, and I started to think it had just been some software issue or lag. Then I noticed small things. My shower curtain would be pulled halfway instead of all the way open. A dining chair would be angled out slightly from the table. Once I found the bathroom cabinet open when I knew I'd closed it, because I'm weird about that stuff. None of it was enough to prove anything, but it started getting into my head. I stopped sleeping well. I started checking the locks in the middle of the night. I even put a piece of clear tape along the top edge of the front door one morning before work, thinking if someone opened it, the tape would shift or tear. When I came home that evening, the tape was still there. That should have made me feel better, but it somehow made me feel worse. A few nights later, I was at my desk during a break when another alert came in. This one showed more. The hallway was empty at first. Then, very slowly, a face leaned into view from the side of my bedroom doorway, just enough to look toward the camera. I don't know how to explain how wrong it felt. It wasn't a quick accidental pass. It was careful, curious. Whoever it was knew exactly where the camera was and was staying mostly out of frame on purpose. You could only see part of the forehead, one eye, and the side of the nose. But that one eye looked directly into the lens for maybe a second before disappearing. I got up so fast my chair tipped over. I called 911 from the break room and drove back behind the police because I was convinced I was about to walk into something horrible. They cleared the apartment and found no one. One officer asked if I'd shown the clip to anyone else or maybe had an ex with a key. I didn't. I'd been in that apartment for just under a year. No ex, no roommate, no family nearby, nothing like that. The only spare key I knew of was in the leasing office. They took a report, but I could tell they thought it might be some kind of camera distortion, or maybe a trespassing attempt that failed. I showed the officer the other clips, and even he admitted the face one was strange, but strange isn't the same as evidence. After that, I bought a second camera and pointed it directly at my bedroom door from inside the room, mostly to make myself feel less crazy. I also wedged a little rubber doorstop under the front door every night. For 3 days, there were no alerts. On the 4th night, I got one from the bedroom camera while I was in the living room watching TV. The notification sound went off in my hand, and when I opened it, the clip showed my bedroom in darkness with the door slowly opening inward from the hallway. What messed me up was that I was 10 feet away from that same hallway and hadn't heard the door move. I looked up from the couch at the exact same moment and saw the bedroom door at the end of the hall standing open. I don't even remember getting to my feet. I just remember backing toward the front door, heart pounding so hard it was making my vision shake, and yelling something into the apartment, even though I knew that was a bad idea. No answer. I ran outside barefoot and called 911 again. This time, they found my bedroom closet door cracked open. One officer said maybe I'd left it that way during the earlier search, but I knew I hadn't because I'd started checking it obsessively. They found no one else, no signs of forced entry, and again, the front door was still locked from the inside when I ran out, which made no sense. After they left, I sat in my car for almost an hour, trying to think logically about it. That's when I realized something I should have figured out sooner. Whoever had been inside probably wasn't coming through the front door at all. My apartment had one of those small maintenance access panels in the back of the bedroom closet ceiling, the kind leading to plumbing and a shared crawl space between units. I'd never thought about it because it was painted over and looked like part of the ceiling. The next morning, I dragged a chair into the closet and pushed on it. It opened with almost no effort. The wood panel shifted up and a bunch of dust came down on my face. I used my phone flashlight and saw dark beams, insulation, pipes, and, right near the edge, a flattened spot in the insulation, like someone had been lying there. There was also an empty water bottle and a cigarette butt, even though no one who lived in my building was supposed to have access to that space. I climbed down so fast, I nearly fell. The police came back, checked the crawl space, and found that it connected above 3 units in my row. They never found anyone in it, but they did find another pushed-aside panel, 2 apartments down in a vacant unit that was being renovated. The leasing office tried to act shocked and called it an isolated security issue. But one of the contractors quietly told me they'd found food wrappers in the vacant unit before and assumed it was homeless people getting in at night. What still bothers me is how long it had probably been happening before I noticed, and how comfortable whoever it was had gotten inside my place. I still have all the clips saved, and every once in a while I make the mistake of watching them again. The hallway one is bad enough, but the face at the bedroom door is the one I can't shake, because when you slow it down, right before the eye looks at the camera, you can see that the person is smiling, like they know I'll be watching it later. If you made it this far, and you want more stories like these, please like and subscribe. I got the first alert at 1:07 in the morning, and what bothered me wasn't that my backyard camera picked up movement. It was that the movement looked like someone stepping away from my kitchen window. The second the camera activated, I only saw the side of a shoulder and part of a head disappearing out of frame. But it was close enough to the glass that for a second, I honestly thought whoever it was had been looking inside. I live in a small rental house at the end of a dead street, and after my landlord raised the rent last year, I stayed mostly because it was still cheaper than any apartment near my job. The place itself always felt a little too exposed. There was a narrow side yard leading to the backyard gate, a fence that looked private but really wasn't, and one big kitchen window facing the back patio. The only reason I had security cameras at all was because my car had been gone through twice while parked out front, and the police basically told me that unless I had footage, there wasn't much they could do. So I put one camera above the front porch, one in the backyard facing the patio and kitchen window, and a cheap indoor camera on a shelf in the living room pointed toward the front door and hallway. I never expected them to catch anything serious. Most of the alerts were raccoons, branches moving, or me forgetting I'd left for work 10 minutes earlier. That night, I was half asleep when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I opened the clip, saw that shape pulling away from the kitchen window, and sat up immediately. I remember turning toward the bedroom doorway and just listening. The house was quiet. No crashing, no footsteps, nothing. I checked the front camera, then the indoor one. Front porch was empty. Living room looked normal. I told myself it was probably someone cutting through the yard, maybe a neighbor's teenager or somebody drunk, but I still got up and checked the locks anyway. The back door was locked, the kitchen window was locked, and the blinds were down like always. I stood there for a minute staring at the glass, trying to see my reflection without thinking about somebody else standing on the other side of it a few minutes earlier. I didn't call the police because by then there was nothing to report besides a weird clip. And honestly, I didn't want to be the paranoid guy calling 911 because somebody may have looked in a window. The next morning, I watched the video again before leaving for work. The person moved like they were startled, almost like the camera's click or infrared light gave them away. That part got under my skin because it meant they were close enough to react to it. For the next few days, I kept checking the yard before bed, and I started leaving the kitchen light on at night, even though I hate doing that, because I don't like the electric bill creeping up. Nothing happened for almost a week. Then I started noticing little things that didn't feel big enough to be real proof. One of the back gate boards looked looser than before. The trash can by the side of the house had been moved a few inches away from the wall. I came home and found the patio chair angled toward the kitchen window instead of toward the table. That one really got to me because I never sat out there. I barely even used the backyard except to drag the trash bins out. I kept thinking maybe the wind had moved it, but the chair was heavy, and the more I looked at it, the more it felt placed there. I mentioned it to a coworker, and he laughed and told me I was letting the cameras make me crazy, which maybe was true. The problem was, once you start feeling watched in your own house, normal sounds stop sounding normal. Every creak felt intentional. Every time the ice maker dropped cubes in the freezer, I jumped. I started checking the camera feeds before I even got out of bed in the morning. 2 nights later, I got another alert from the backyard camera, this time around 12:40. I was still awake in bed, watching videos on my phone when it came through. The clip showed the patio and kitchen window like normal at first. Then a man walked in from the side yard and stopped directly in front of the glass. He wasn't masked or dressed like some dramatic burglar. He looked normal, which almost made it worse. Ball cap, dark hoodie, jeans. He leaned slightly, like he was trying to see through the gap between the blinds and the frame, and then he lifted one hand and touched the window. Not a knock, not pounding, just rested his fingers against the glass for a second, like he was checking whether it was solid. I called 911 that time, whispering from my bedroom while watching the live feed. By the time police arrived, he was gone. They checked the yard with flashlights, walked the block, took a quick statement, and that was it. One officer told me to keep doors and windows locked and maybe add better lighting to the backyard. The other one asked if I knew anyone who might be messing with me. I didn't. No ex, no ongoing problems, no weird neighbor issues. After they left, I didn't sleep at all. The next day, I bought a motion light and installed it over the back door, and I moved the indoor camera so it could see more of the hallway and part of the kitchen. I also started keeping a baseball bat beside the bed, which I know is cliché, but being alone in that house started feeling stupid. The thing that pushed me from uneasy to genuinely scared happened the following weekend. I had worked a double shift and got home late, around 11:30. I remember because I ate standing over the sink, too tired to even heat the food properly, then took a shower and went straight to bed. At 2:18 in the morning, my indoor camera sent a motion alert. I opened it expecting to see some lighting glitch from passing headlights, but instead, the clip showed the edge of my hallway and the entrance to the kitchen, and for about 1 second, somebody's shadow moved across the kitchen floor. Not outside the window, inside the house. I watched it over and over. trying to make it into something else, but it was too solid. It moved across the tile, dark and human-shaped, then disappeared beyond the frame. I froze in bed, staring at my bedroom door, waiting to hear footsteps. Nothing. The air conditioner kicked on and off. A car passed somewhere outside. That was it. I checked the live feed, and the kitchen looked empty. I called 911 again, this time not caring if I sounded crazy. The officers searched the whole house. Doors locked, windows locked. No one inside. One of them stood in the kitchen and tried to recreate the shadow from the headlights outside, but the angle didn't match. Another checked the backyard and side gate, then asked if I'd ever had anyone do work on the house recently. I said the landlord had a handyman come fix something under the sink about a month before, but that was it. They left after another report, and I sat in the living room until sunrise with every light on. That's when I started going through old footage instead of just recent alerts. I don't know why I hadn't done it sooner. Maybe I didn't want to confirm what I already felt. I scrubbed back through the indoor camera history from the past couple weeks, mostly late at night. And at first, there was nothing. Then I found a clip from 4 nights earlier at 3:11 a.m. It showed my hallway empty for the first 3 seconds. Then, very slowly, my bedroom door moved inward about 2 inches and stopped. Not enough to wake me, just enough to create a black gap between the door and frame. A full minute later, in the next clip, it closed again. I felt physically sick watching that because I sleep with my bedroom door mostly shut, and I know for a fact I didn't open it in the middle of the night. I kept searching and found another one from the week before. In that clip, the kitchen was dark except for moonlight through the blinds, and near the bottom of the frame, low to the ground, you could see someone's hand grip the corner of the wall like they were crouched just out of view. It stayed there for 3 full seconds, then pulled back. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just somebody peeking through a window or trying doors. Someone had been inside the house more than once, and they were being careful enough that I only caught pieces of them by accident. I left work early that day and went straight to the landlord's office. He acted concerned in that way people do when they mostly just want the problem to go away. He said he'd change the locks, but he also kept suggesting maybe I was reading too much into glitchy footage. I told him I wanted every possible key accounted for, including old copies, maintenance copies, everything. He promised to handle it. That night, I stayed with a friend, and the next day I came back during daylight to grab clothes and look around more carefully. I wish I hadn't. In the laundry room off the kitchen, there was a narrow crawl-space door I had never paid much attention to because it blended into the wall behind a shelf. It led to a shallow utility area under part of the house, mostly pipes and dirt. The door had a simple latch on it, and I noticed right away that the dust around the edges was smeared. I opened it and found a sleeping bag shoved against the foundation wall, along with 2 empty sports drink bottles, a flashlight, and a grocery bag with wrappers inside. I backed out so fast I hit the shelf behind me. The police came and treated it more seriously after that, obviously. But by then, whoever had been staying under there was gone. They said there were signs someone had been using the crawl space for at least a few days, maybe longer. What they thought had been happening was that the person got in through a vent screen at the back of the house, stayed under there during the day, and came up through the crawl space door at night. The reason I never heard it was because the laundry room was on the far side of the kitchen, and the old house made noise all the time anyway. They never caught him. There weren't any good fingerprints, and the landlord admitted that the vent screen had been loose for months, but he'd kept putting off fixing it. I moved out almost immediately, even though it cost me money I really didn't have. What still gets to me isn't just that someone was in the house, it's that he had to know my routine to avoid me for that long. He knew when I'd be asleep. He knew when I worked late. He knew exactly how much he could move around without making enough noise to wake me up. The last clip I ever saved from that place came from the night before I found the crawlspace setup. It was from the backyard camera just before dawn. The man stood at the kitchen window again, but this time he wasn't trying to look in. He was facing the camera. He stood there for almost 10 seconds, completely still, then smiled a little and walked out of frame toward the side yard like he knew he didn't have to hide anymore. The motion alert came in while I was sitting in my living room, and when I opened it, The clip showed my front door opening slowly from the inside, even though I was 10 feet away staring right at it, completely closed. I actually looked up at the door in real time and then back down at my phone because for a second I thought the app had glitched or was showing me an old clip, but the timestamp matched exactly, and in the video, the door opened just enough for a dark shape to stand in the gap before it cut off. I live alone in a second-floor apartment in a pretty normal complex. Nothing sketchy, mostly working people and a few families. And I only got the indoor camera because my sister kept telling me I was dumb for not having one after someone tried her door late one night. Mine sits on a shelf facing the front door and the short hallway that leads to my bedroom and bathroom, and up until that point, the only things it ever caught were me leaving for work or the occasional shadow from headlights through the blinds. I remember sitting there frozen for a second, trying to process what I had just watched. Then checking the live feed immediately, expecting to see the door open or someone standing there, but it showed everything normal. The door shut, the deadbolt locked, nothing out of place. I got up slowly, walked over, and checked it anyway, turning the lock, pulling on the handle, making sure it was solid, and it was. I even opened it and checked the hallway outside just to be sure no one had somehow slipped out. But there was no one there, just the quiet stairwell and the hum of someone's TV from another unit. I told myself it had to be some kind of delay or bug, but it didn't sit right with me because I had literally just been in that same room when the clip was recorded. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it, so I went back through the footage from earlier in the day. Around an hour before that alert, there was another one I hadn't noticed. In that clip, the camera picked up motion in the hallway, and for just a second, you could see something move past the edge of the frame, like someone stepping back quickly out of view. It was subtle enough that if I hadn't already been on edge, I probably would have ignored it. The next day, I reset the camera, updated the app, and even unplugged it for a while before setting it back up, just to rule out any weird technical issues. Everything seemed normal after that. No alerts, no weird clips, nothing out of place. I almost convinced myself I had overreacted. Then a couple days later, I came home from work, and something felt off immediately. Not in an obvious way, just small things. My keys were in the same spot. Nothing was missing, but the air felt different, like when you walk into a room and can tell someone's been there, even if you can't explain why. I noticed my bathroom light was on, which I'm usually careful about turning off before I leave, and my bedroom door was pulled almost shut, even though I always leave it open. I stood there for a minute just listening, expecting to hear something, but the apartment was completely quiet. I checked every room anyway. Closet, under the bed, behind the shower curtain, everything. And there was no one. That night I left the camera running and kept the lights on longer than usual. Around 3 in the morning, I woke up to the notification sound. I opened it right away, and the clip showed the hallway again, dark except for the faint light from the living room. And then my bedroom door slowly moved inward, like someone was pushing it from the inside. I sat up in bed, staring at the same door, which was still slightly open in front of me, not moving at all. I remember feeling this rush of panic because what I was seeing in the clip didn't match what was happening in real life, and I didn't understand how that was possible. I got out of bed and turned on the light, checked the hallway, and again, there was nothing. I didn't sleep after that. The next day, I started paying closer attention to everything. I even put a small piece of tape on the top corner of my front door, so I could tell if it had been opened while I was gone. When I came home that evening, the tape was still there, untouched, but when I walked inside, the first thing I noticed was that my couch cushion had been moved slightly out of place, like someone had sat there and not fixed it. It was such a small thing, but I knew I hadn't left it like that. That's when I started thinking about the possibility that whoever was in my apartment wasn't using the front door at all. I went back through more footage, further back this time, and found something that made my stomach drop. A clip from 2 nights earlier showed the hallway again, and at the very edge of the frame, near the ceiling, there was a shadow moving slowly downward, like someone climbing or lowering themselves from above. I paused it and zoomed in, and you could just barely make out a hand gripping the top of the doorway before disappearing. That's when I realized there was an attic access panel in the hallway ceiling that I had never once opened or even thought about. It was one of those flat, square panels that blends in with the ceiling, and I had always assumed it was just part of the building structure. I grabbed a chair and stood under it, staring at it for a long time before finally pushing it up. The panel lifted easily, way easier than it should have if it hadn't been touched in years, and a layer of dust fell down onto my shoulders. I used my phone flashlight and looked up into the dark space above. At first I didn't see anything, just beams and insulation. But then I noticed a section where the insulation was pressed down flat, like something had been resting there. There were also a couple of empty bottles and what looked like a folded piece of fabric pushed against one of the beams. I climbed down immediately, my hands shaking, and called the police. They searched the attic space and found that it connected to multiple units through a narrow crawl space, and in one section they found more trash, food wrappers, and a small flashlight. They never found the person, but they said it was clear someone had been staying up there, moving between units and coming down when they thought people were gone or asleep. I moved out that same week, even though it cost me to break the lease. What still bothers me is how long it had been happening before I noticed, and how comfortable they must have been to move around like that without being seen. I still have the footage saved, and sometimes I go back and watch it, trying to figure out how many times I missed something. The worst one is still the clip of my front door opening from the inside, because now I'm almost certain it wasn't a glitch at all. It was just the one time the camera caught them coming down before I walked into the room. Some people check their cameras for peace of mind, but once you've seen something like that, you start to wonder if not knowing might have been better.